Hello runners and welcome to this class. My name is Max and I'm going to be your coach for this class here. This class is going to be about running solo. A daunting task for beginners coming into running is the idea of running alone and getting over that hurdle. See, for experienced runners, if you're watching, you're probably looking at this topic as quite an unserious one because of how easy it has been now to slip into the idea of going for a run. It's self-motivation and drive which just automatically clicks for you, allowing you to just go out for your run. But for a new beginner coming into this world of running, the idea of going alone can be quite a daunting task, and the idea of being lonely out whilst running is something that can affect quite a few new people coming into this sport. It's not like a team sport where you have camaraderie and motivation from external factors. It's all from you, and some runs can be quite long for a slow runner or a long distance target to hit, and not having any support or not having anything to keep with you can often lead to the fear of being lonely in that run. But with a change of mindset, I'm sure you'll be able to get around that hurdle and obstacle and see running alone as a maybe a therapeutic and self-improvement type workout for yourself if you do struggle with the idea of being alone with such a hard task like running. Starting any journey into a big open world of ideas and potential can be quite daunting on a new person. That's why we will look to have people around us to help us in that field. See, I grew up running, and I grew up running with people, and just the idea of me being out running never seemed like a daunting task really, because I had been running for so long, alone and with people. It was just maybe the idea of advancing and not having anyone with me or around me was sometimes a little difficult, but I would go away and I would tell people about the improvements I was making and the achievements I've reached, and I would actually show on social media, to try and promote that idea, because when you do come back for a run sometimes, that sense of pride is always going to be the greatest feeling you have. But slowly afterwards, when the adrenaline does wear off, I can't lie and say that that pride will stay with you, because you would want someone to share your experience with you. Any normal person would. So the idea of being lonely whilst out running never really was a factor for me, but it was afterwards when I was back home and the adrenaline had worn off and I'd have to do some stretches, and that's when the boredom would kick in and I'd have to share my achievements with people. Maybe it was a sense of pride, a sense of ego, but I feel like if I experienced it, you are sure enough going to experience it yourself. And maybe by creating these videos and having the comment section there and the course to teach you, I'm hoping that maybe I'll create a small community here to allow people to communicate and tell people what they've achieved and starting up for their own personal journey. I don't want to see any hate going around in that sense, no one to talk down on people, because we've all been on this journey at one point or another. It's a ladder, it's a staircase. Everyone has reached a certain step at some point, some may be further ahead than others, but you can never be higher than someone to then look down on them on a bad way, because you yourself were once on that step. No one goes into running and is a pro. It doesn't happen. You've all had to advance slowly, maybe quickly, it depends how much dedication you put into it, but we've all been there. We've all been there. So I wouldn't see any need for someone to then look down on someone if you were to share experiences in running. Like when I would share on social media, I was very proud of my runs, and I know that there was people quicker than me. I know that for sure, but I was more proud of the distance I was doing. So I would never care if someone was to make a comment about how quick I was running, because I was the one going out and doing it, they weren't. So it never occurred to me to then look down on myself because someone else might. I always kept my own pride and my own self-confidence with me, and never let anyone else affect it. But looking at you now, and as the beginner coming into this, my main tip for you is to try, and it's very selfish, but to try and use your own drive and motivation to be more stronger and more powerful than any other emotion that can affect you whilst you're running or in this journey. It could be whilst you're running or just the bigger picture. You need to be selfish. You have made the decision to improve yourself in this world of fitness and cardio. It's the greatest factor you have. Muscles are one thing, it's a visual thing, because a lot of people who go to the gym do not work from muscle strength, they work from muscle look. And is it really effective? I mean, it's healthy, it's very healthy, but I believe that cardio is one of the greatest things you can do for your own health. And by doing this journey, by starting it, you need to be aware of that. You need to be aware that you are so much more stronger than someone who is putting off the idea of cardio. And by that sense of drive and passion you will have will completely dominate the emotions and feelings you have of loneliness or boredom whilst you're out running. It needs to be such a grit the teeth passion that you get when you finish a run. You have that same passion, but you need to keep it going and during your run. It might be when you've hit a kilometre. See, I used to have my headphones in and it would tell me when I've hit a kilometre, and every time a new one had just lapped over, you would never ever feel a sense of loneliness when you hear that. Never. The only thing you might feel, which is a downside, would be if your time came in through your ear and it was slower than your last one and you really wanted to speed up. And that's just yourself tricking your brain into improving more. Nothing to do with boredom or loneliness. Never even come into it. And even more powerful than that is the sense of you embracing the journey by going for a run. The idea of starting a run and deciding you're going to lace your shoes up, you're going to stretch for 10-20 minutes and then go out for a run. That is the greatest power you have when it comes to self-driving motivation. It's the biggest step you can take, because once you've done it, you're out. You're out. It doesn't matter how far you run, doesn't matter how fast you go. You've taken that step to go out there and run. And by doing that, you are not letting that fear of loneliness come in. Because all it is just anxiety. It's just anxiety to not do something. It could even be making an excuse to not go for a run. Maybe the idea of aching after isn't too pleasant, so you come up with the thought of being lonely, and you need to think about your own emotions in that sense, because you know deep down this is good for you. So why would you let that fear come into you? I don't understand why. I mean, I don't understand why sometimes it still happens now to me. Like the idea of going to the gym sometimes is just, I'll be by myself, but I know by the time I'm finished, I feel so much better for myself. I don't get why we do that as a species. I don't understand it, but maybe we never will. And by doing that, it is a battle every day. It's a battle to get out that door and run. And by doing that and by conquering it, the idea of boredom and loneliness shall never ever enter that brain span for that time. That time span, sorry. It will never enter again. Then the next day comes and it's another battle. And then the next day comes and it's a battle after that. But you just got to take it on at this moment to win. Because when you do, it's downhill from there. As in, not downhill as in a bad thing, but downhill as in it's easy. It's much easier. Perhaps the sense of loneliness could come from you not being with people. See, you could join a running club. That is fine. I've never joined one, but if that idea is pleasant to you, by all means go ahead and join a running club. But you also need to be able to run alone. I don't care if it's if you do enjoy the running club, fine. That's absolutely fine. But to improve, you can't just rely on that. You need to be able to be mentally strong enough to run by yourself. And it might come down the line. You might join a running club and do a month there, and then feel like you're strong enough to go and run by yourself, because it might be you might feel like you're not good enough to run by yourself and you need that support. That's fine. Join a club, go out running with someone, a friend or family, it's fine. But down the line, you need to take that step and run by yourself. See, one thing that could happen to you is the idea of when you're alone, you don't feel like you're gonna have as much fun or freedom as you think you would with people. See, I realised that the time with my friends is going to be there. It's going to happen, and I'm going to have fun with them. So when I'm by myself, they're not going to run. I'm not going to wait on them to start running because I know they never will. It's down to me at this point. So when I was alone, I just thought, why not use this time for myself to improve and go out running? See, like I said, I know I'm going to enjoy the time with my friends, maybe the weekend, maybe in the week, meet after work. But I know at this point, when I'm by myself, I'm not going to waste my time on my phone or playing Xbox. It's going to be spent out running because I know that's the best thing I can do right now. I do realise that this generation, especially my generation and younger, they have the attention span of a goldfish. And I know that. And I think a lot of people do realise it in themselves as well. They can admit to that. So maybe the idea of going for a run for a considerable period of time, like maybe half an hour and longer, that is so daunting on them because they know that they won't be able to concentrate too much, which I don't understand because, I mean, you can have music in your ears, you can have a podcast going, and the idea of working for yourself in that period of time should completely overwhelm the idea of being bored. How can you be bored? If you go out running, it should be the idea of just improving and passion and drive. If that drive wears off, it's not drive, that's motivation, because motivation can fall off very quickly. You can be motivated for 10 minutes and then the next 20 minutes be just completely down on yourself. But a drive to go out running, that should completely dominate the feeling of boredom. Boredom should never come into it. It really shouldn't. And the idea that you could be doing something better, what could you be doing better? I don't understand what you could be doing. Like, going on your phone and scrolling is not going to be better than being out, away from home, running and hitting goals you want to hit. You may get bored of the idea of running. I have previously. That's why I started going to the gym, to get bigger and grow muscle. I did have to come back to cardio when I realised you have to cut weight sometimes. I realised that a couple of years ago. But I mean, the idea of going for a run generates a lot more feelings and emotions than actually being out on a run. It's just that anxiety, it's just that your brain talking to you, and you know that you may be a bit bored, but you just have to remember that feeling of finishing. See, if you could extract that emotion of finishing a run and put it in a pill, it would be the most expensive drug on the planet, because nothing will give you that feeling. It won't. And you need to remember that. You need to remember how strong of emotion you get finishing a run. It's amazing. It really is. It's just, well, I'm sure you've experienced yourself, and it's that feeling you have to chase, because the idea of being bored won't come into it. Won't be bored. You can't. There is no such thing as being bored. Only boring people exist. And are you going to completely admit to yourself that you're a boring person, or are you going to go out and run? You're going to go out and run, because admitting to the other is just, it's just giving up. It's just not great as you. I can't really put it into words really. If you do get bored of waiting for progress to come, I think you need to realise that things do not come easy. They don't come quick. And you thought going out for a run you would drop the weight and you'd be able to run 10 kilometres, 5 kilometres, 15 if that's your target, maybe a half marathon or a full one. But you need to realise that it's a long process, and you need to fall in love with the idea of running, not the idea of gaining an achievement in it, a personal achievement, that is. That's the only factor, I think, that can really weigh on someone who is even an experienced runner when it comes to boredom, because you get bored of waiting for something to happen if you are constantly concentrating on the achievement at the end. It's the journey, as cliche as that sounds. It is the journey, it's the process. It is a process that takes its time, and if you keep with it, then eventually things will start happening, and you'll get to see what goals you had slowly come into view. But you need to fall in love with the idea of it, and that might take some time. That's why I say start maybe with running with a club if you do feel that loneliness or that boredom, because I'm sure you can talk to each other whilst you're running. Like I've said, I've never joined one. I have gone running with people before, and to be honest, I prefer being alone. Like going to the gym, I've always preferred going by myself. It was great to have someone teach me how to use the gym. I had that for about a year. It was a friend of mine who would teach me everything, but after a while it just became me, and at first it's a little bit daunting, obviously, but you fall in love with it. You fall in love with that alone time, because like I said earlier, you have the time with your friends where you're going to be happy, or that time maybe when you put a film on by yourself and you enjoy watching that or playing video games, if that's your vice. But being alone and working on yourself, there is no better feeling, because I would rather do that every day of my life than scroll on my phone or watch TV. But that's just me. I guess I'm further down the line than some new beginners, and I can look back with pride on that, because you will as well. When you look back on yourself and you realise, God, how rubbish was I when I was feeling this or wanting to do that instead, you'll just look back and wonder why you did that, because the idea of being bored and lonely will never come into sight again. Will never come into sight again. The idea of being alone out running, concentrating on your breathing, and just when you hit that runner's high, there is no better feeling. There is no better feeling to look back on either. It's proper memory lane sometimes, when you can think back on distances you've hit for the first time, or when you ran down the hill and you hit that time, and you can just, like I said, if you could bottle it and put it in a drug, it'd be the greatest drug ever made. It'd be better than any painkiller, any prescription medication. It would just be amazing. And you just need to concentrate and keep going until that comes into sight. And for new runners, I wish you luck. You've got a great journey ahead of you, but it's just these first couple steps that are going to be the hardest for you. And if you're an experienced runner and you know what I'm talking about, that's great as well. And maybe I've helped you reminisce on times when you felt the downside of this, starting your journey, and all that stuff, really. Thank you. This is Earth Stride Society, and if you could subscribe, that'd be brilliant. Thank you very much.